Hi guys, and welcome to a very special episode of the In the Hub podcast, brought to you by Playbox Technology UK. This episode marks 1 year since our first ever episode, and we've come a long way since then. To celebrate, we're releasing a 2-part series debating the future of live sports in broadcasting. As a company, we have a number of customers who deal with the stresses and excitement of broadcasting live sports to millions of viewers across the globe. It's a topic that we're really passionate about, and we've brought some experts onto the podcast to discuss what the future holds for live sports broadcasting. This week, we're joined by Harm van Houten from YourSide and Wilfried Wuest from Sport Media Net. Both Harm and Wilfried are incredibly well versed in live sports broadcasting, helping their customers to navigate the sports landscape and make a real impact with audiences. Really hope you enjoy this episode, and thank you again to all of our listeners for streaming and downloading our podcast over the past year. Yeah, so welcome to the podcast, guys. Harm and Wilfried. How are you guys both doing today?
I'm fine, thanks.
Fine, thank you.
It's good to hear, guys. And it's really great to have you back on. I was just looking back through the episode list. Harm, I think you were our 3rd episode on the podcast. And then Wilfried, I think you're a bit further up at 35. And it took me back on a trip to look back at those, to be honest. We've come quite a long way. We're nearly at 50 episodes now. And this will just be our way of kind of doing a 1-year anniversary episode where we talk a little bit about sports broadcasting and the future of that. So again, thank you guys very much for coming on today.
You're welcome.
Just to briefly recap, guys, and we'll start with you, Wilfried. How did you come to be involved in sports broadcasting?
Yeah, well, as previously said, from its start in the early days, television and sports, and then the wonderful alliance. And since I've been working all my lifetime in TV broadcast, I think there were no escape to be involved in the TV sports business. And today, TV sports content is one of the few content, as said, which broadcasters use to differ from competition. And that said, it's more than obvious, working in the broadcast environment, that sport has taken an essential part of attention and, of course, of my business. And for many years, in various functions, I was heavily engaged to provide services, equipment, tools to support almost all major sport events worldwide, Soccer World Championship, Soccer Bundesliga, Mediterranean Games, Olympics, Formula 1, etc. So, sports was always part of my professional business life.
Yeah, that was always an interest of yours, Wilfried. And Harm, how did you come to be involved in the kind of sports side of broadcasting?
Well, it's a sort of a logical step, as broadcast is primarily sports nowadays. So yeah, you kind of get dragged into the sports side of things automatically, and it's pretty much the place where all the magic happens. It's where a lot of innovations happen. It's where all the spiffy graphics come from. It's pretty much on the broadcast side where things happen.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of excitement obviously happens in sport. I think a lot of stress also happens in sport. So not even for the athletes, but obviously operators and the actual broadcasting side of it as well.
Sometimes you would think that the Olympics should have an additional category for just the broadcasters.
The cameramen just running around. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Prize for fastest cameraman.
So let's get straight into it then, guys. Harm, do you think that streaming and OTT delivery, do you think these kind of delivery mechanisms are the future of live sports as we know it?
I think yes. It's quite in short, because there's so much going on. There are not enough linear channels where you could put everything on. Of course, the major things like Bundesliga, Olympics, and that kind of stuff. Yes, of course, you can put that on pretty much every linear channel, but all of the B sports that you see coming up now, where more localized sports clubs also start to bring their content towards the internet and towards the viewers. OTT platforms and streaming will be a major contributor of the sports broadcasting section.
Yeah. And what about you, Wilfried? Do you think that OTT and streaming, that's the future of live sports delivery?
Yeah, like it or not, I think we have to accept that there is already a change in consumer behavior towards streaming and OTT delivery taking place today. So, I mean, I'm convinced that we will see more changes in consumer behavior, such as a shift. I've spoken recently with you about it, from today very popular sport disciplines towards a growing diversity of sport offerings on all screens. Yeah. New disciplines, esports, fantasy sports, gaming, etc. And in addition, the user behavior of the younger generation will lead to consume more short-form content instead of watching a full live sport broadcast in full length. And all this will lead to increased offerings in sport content on TV. And finally, consumers prefer to watch sport content on a diversity of screens nowadays. Yeah? Particular mobile screen with a kind of personalization, and that's why we'll see a further shift from classical TV distribution, from my point of view, towards OTT in the future. I mean, there is not anymore an excuse to say that the reach it's a killer argument. The Zone reported that in US today more than 250 TV sets are connected to the internet, and of course all the mobile screens, etc. I mean, OTT is given. Yeah, there's no escape. Yeah.
No, I completely agree, guys. On the flip side of that, do you think there's still this kind of strong market for satellite delivery for live sports, and why do you think that is?
Yeah, maybe satellite delivery still has its strengths. I think whereas a traditional one-to-many distribution model remains as a tool of choice from my point of view. However, the linear dominance and so for satellite distribution is on decline. I mean, we have to accept that. As a UK Deloitte December report mentioned or highlighted, that the digital streaming services are rising sharply, and there is no escape. And satellite will have its let's say its part in the traditional distribution model, but as said, it will be on decline.
Yeah. And what about you, Harm? Do you think there's still a strong market for satellite delivery for live sport? Do you think there always will be a strong market for it?
Well, I don't say a strong market. There will be a market for it. I think a satellite is sort of a technology which is resilient. It's reliable. So it will be. It will stay around. As for uplinks, as for downlinks, it's easy to set up for countries where, cable penetration isn't that far ahead already. So, yeah, for the time being, I would say 10, 15, maybe 20 years, it will still be around. It will change slowly with initiatives like Starlink, OneWeb, and all 4G, 5G. It will slowly change. But I think for the upcoming 10 to 20 years, you'll certainly see satellites still be there with a strong foothold on its current position.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, guys. I wanted to kind of pick your brains on this topic. I'm not sure how much kind of experience you guys have had in these certain kind of innovations, but virtual reality and augmented reality, obviously, quite hotly debated topics when it comes to live sports and live sports broadcasting. Do you think there is a kind of valid future for these technologies in the future of live sports?
Yes, from my point of view, yes. The sport is emotion, and as service providers are able to engage consumers into a match or a game, as more benefits they can generate from for themselves, growing customer base, etc. And virtual reality and data center business models, which goes along with the use of these new technologies, will certainly play a significant role in the future. For example, metadata of selected players can be provided, and users can compare the data and physical fitness, speed, running distance in sport, etc. There's so much stories you can tell with the help of this new technology, and humans like narratives. With the help of the new technology, narratives can be told better and more user-centric. Yeah? And think about fantasy games with the interaction of users, which can be provided with the help of AR and VR. So, I mean, yes, that will for sure play a major role in sport broadcasting.
Yeah, 100%. What about you, Harm? Do you think you'll be wearing a VR headset to watch the basketball anytime soon?
Well, not maybe a VR headset, but I think that things like virtual additions to statistics to explain certain game scenarios where if a player would have done this, how would the ball end up then? So go more in depth into situations that has arisen during the game. I think that will have a major contributing factor in the experience people have watching a game on any of the platforms. And it might be AR. It's well, as Wilfried just mentioned, metadata-driven graphics, where you can get things on detail, like the number of steps a specific player has made during a specific action, and you'll see. I think the junior sporters will try to imitate certain moves by getting the details, the feeling from the broadcast. They will try to start imitating. They will start to try, do the same things as their idols do. And I think that's the big advantage of adding these types of graphics, metadata, and creating a complete sports experience.
I think, there are no limits really to what AR and VR can obviously do for sports. And me personally, I think if it's a sport I'm really, passionate about, I would definitely be paying a couple of extra dollars, a couple of extra pounds to get access to in-depth stats and stuff like that, and in-depth knowledge. I really agree with that, guys. I think that's a really good point.
Well, that's actually something that's already happening with companies like Genius, for instance. Genius is a sports computer statistics company, and they are slowly rising in the way that they handle the data. There's more and more information coming from. Take FIBA Stats, which is a piece of software that the scouts next to the field use during the basketball. The vast amount of data that comes from that, and that's just manual inputted data. Imagine if you put sensors in the floor, if you put cameras overhead, if you start combining all of that data, then you can pretty much. We did a test at one point where we just took the flat data, so not the actual captured data, but just the flat data from the FIBA Stats software. We were almost able to do a complete 3D render of where a ball would be, just based on the just on the flat metadata, which is user inputted. Imagine what you can do when it's a full sensorized field, a sensorized ring, and that's just basketball. Tennis, for instance, with the in or out signaling, is already pretty much a sort of an advanced version of AR. Yeah. So and that will only advance further.
I agree.
You make it sound really exciting, Harm, actually, and I'm really excited to see what the kind of future holds with that.
Well, from my perspective, I'm usually on the play out side and on the side where we generate these graphics. It is really exciting, because what you see coming together from all of these lines and lines of code and data, and then getting that to form a virtual surrounding, a virtual field where then the completely captured action takes place again, but then drawn from a computer generated image that you can completely swivel around and look at all angles. That can give you extra in-depth information. You can add a look and feel to a match, which unfortunately for all of the clubs you can't do when you're in the stadium. The stadium has its own acoustics, its own look and feel, and the only way to bring that towards the couch is to use AR, to use these types of graphics. It's almost unbearable to not have it.
No, yeah, completely agree. And to move over to kind of viewing methods, guys, as opposed to kind of delivery methods and things like that. Do you guys personally think that this whole kind of pay-per-view model is becoming outdated for sports, more so in favour of these kind of convenient monthly subscriptions we've been seeing? Or do you think pay-per-view is still very much the best choice for consumers?
As far as consumer needs are concerned, I'm convinced that there is not a one-size-fits-all business model available. So some users may like the pay-per-view model, whereas others may in favor with the subscription model. I mean, from my point of view, important for providers is the need to listen to their customers. So in even more fragmented sport media environment with ever-growing sports content offerings, it is important that all the players can monetize their investment as much as possible. Yeah? And for sure, both models can live in the perfect harmony from my point of view. And new models like the NBA League Pass, for example, are going to address additional customer needs and generate growth. So that means there is not black and white. I mean, there can be anything in between. And from my point of view, providers need to experiment more and find out what works best for the customers. For example, a game pass could be a solution, a subscription for a selected team to attract maybe more customers. Yeah. So there's so much in between, and I think you can't say that pay-per-view will be the model for the future or subscription. I think there's a lot in between which can used by the service providers to generate growth. Yeah. My point of view.
No, I really agree with that, Wilfried. It's interesting you say that. I think oftentimes with monthly subscriptions, obviously you feel a little bit left out when there's a month with not as much sporting activity, obviously, if you're locked into a kind of like a 12-month contract or something like that. So that's obviously when pay-per-view kind of comes into play. But I would love to see this more kind of specialist, whatever works for the customer, basically. So like you said, team-based subscriptions. In boxing, you just pay to see a single fighter's fights or something like that. I think that would be brilliant. The more specific we can get, the better for consumers, I think. And what do you think, Harm? Do you think pay-per-view is still untouchable in terms of sports broadcasting?
Well, as we touched on just now, I think it will be in harmony. So you have a monthly subscription versus a pay-per-view kind of way. And that might be because you're into football, but just not match A doesn't really, you don't care about that, but all of your matches of your local club you want to see. So you will subscribe as a monthly model to your local club, but you will add the club A matches when they are interesting to you. Or so you'll sort of end up with a blend. You might not like horse racing, but you do like soccer. So but the horse racing for tomorrow might be interesting, so you'll add that as a pay-per-view, but the soccer you have as a subscription model. So it'll be like partially Netflix, partially pay-per-view. That's the thing with sports. It's so largely and widely available, as in the number of and sorts of sports that you have. That people are widely interested. So they might like soccer, they might like horse racing, they might like basketball, but they don't like tennis. So why would I pay for a subscription monthly with tennis in it? Because I don't care about tennis. But someone else doesn't like horse racing. So I think you'll end up with a long list of tick boxes you can tick. Okay, I want to subscribe to these as a monthly thing. And then you get an email whenever there's a match that sort of meets your AI criteria. Because I think that's the way that the majority of people will watch their sports. In the Netherlands, we had quite a number of really pay-per-view initiatives. Well, we Dutch are sort of conservative, so when we turn on the TV, we expect to see something and not like a coin device popping up and then a credit card needs to go next to the television. But that's maybe us Dutch trying to be cheap. But yeah, I think it'll be 50-50. So it's like in a restaurant, you order your food, and you add your drinks, you add whatever you like to the side to it. So I think that's sort of what it's gonna be.
Yeah, no, I completely 100% agree, guys. I think what's really important to remember there, like you said, Wilfried, is it can't be a one-size-fits-all thing, can it? Because there's, like Harm was saying, so many different sports, so many different types of fans, whether it be casual or completely obsessive. Not one way is going to work for all of those guys, is it? So I completely agree with you guys there. And then out of all the kind of future developments that are on the way for sport, so we obviously spoke about VR and AR, but if we're considering things like 8K and 5G and things like that, which one do you guys think is going to be the most exciting for broadcasts? So if we start with you, Wilfried.
From my point of view, it's very clear. Data, we have spoken about it. Data to be used to tell stories with the help of AR or VR. People like stories and new stories to be told. I mean, that's let's say my favorite new technology to take place. In contrast to 8K, I'm convinced that consumers take more benefits out of improved, enhanced audio, for example, or an improved higher contrast, higher resolution is not, let's say, the real answer. There is so much dependency of screen size, viewing distance. The use of 8K is really not a remarkable benefit for most of the customers from my point of view. And furthermore, knowing that more than 50% of sports content offerings are consumed on mobile devices, 8K does not really offer their real benefit. So my favorite is the data, yeah? And as said, enhanced audio and improved HD technology. I think that it's better than the 8K solution.
Yeah, 100%, Wilfried. And what about you, Harm? What do you think is going to be the most exciting kind of innovation for sports broadcasting moving forwards?
I think right next to metadata, it'll be remote production. I think you'll see more and more stadiums come on net of a facility provider, or maybe even the broadcasters themselves. So with the all introductions of Pt.1, AES67, SRT, all of the protocols that are out there, I think you'll see more sports coming towards OTT and on demand, using these technologies, and even towards linear stations, this will be more and more a remote thing. That said, it will also take a bit of the emotion out of the production itself, but it makes it vastly more efficient to do more with the same equipment, so that you can provide more sports, more insights, and you can do detailed graphics with, even because you don't have to travel with the equipment, with the main and most expensive equipment. So you can do immersive graphics for sports that usually have just a little budget with a little truck. So now you can do all the big graphics also for the smaller sports. So you can bring them more attractive to the screen using remote broadcast. And then 5G and things like that. I think mostly fiber, but 5G will have its part in that as well.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think there's so many benefits that can be said for, like you were saying, centralizing production, keeping it all in one kind of central unit, and not having this massive expenditure of obviously sending out all of the equipment to wherever it needs to be. So I think there's some really good points there, guys. I think sometimes you can get lost in some of these way out there kind of exciting prospects, like we're saying VR, you being able to sit in a stadium with a headset on. Sometimes we tend to forget that there are real changes happening now, and there's real transformations happening now that can really have a big impact on sports broadcasting, which will be really exciting. So you guys are obviously going to be quite familiar with this question. We asked it last time, so this is no trick question for you guys. You're well prepared. And it's just in one word, what do you guys envision for the future of the sports broadcasting industry? So if we start with you, Harm.
If I was to put it in a single word, I would say that sports broadcasting will be more innovative. So there will be more innovations in graphics, more innovations in data being used. I think that's the biggest thing that will happen over the coming few years within sports.
Yeah, no, I love that. And what about you, Wilfried? What do you envision for the future of sports broadcasting, if you had to condense it into one word?
Yeah, as previously said, the change in consumer, they push classical broadcast to take a more active role. They must adapt their business to the OTT world, from my point of view. And as said in the past, from my point of view, consumers search for content, and in future, content is searching for consumers. So that means you have to be more attractive with your service for your customers. So that means you have to put the customer in the middle and listen to their needs. And I think that becomes really important for all players in the sports business. It's not that the sport itself will sell. I mean, the broadcasters, the players, the service providers, they have to play a much more active role and to find, let's say, the customers in the OTT world. And of course, this will widen, of course, also the reach for them.
Yeah. So what would your one word be, Wilfried? Would it be customer, or would it be content? What would you, if you had to put it into one word and one word only, what would you choose?
Extended services for the customers.
Wilfried, we'll take it. We'll take it. Only because it was such a great answer. We'll take it. Yeah. So guys, thank you so much again for joining me today and kind of educating me a bit on that kind of topic. Harm, are there any exciting plans in the pipeline for you that you can talk to us about today? What's going on with you?
Well, we're still going strong with all of our remote solutions like SRT. We just recently added RTS Intercom to our portfolio. So we're slowly trying to move forward into the remote broadcasting section, but then again, for majorly sports. That's what we see a lot. On the other side, we also see the medical side rising for remote production. So more and more operating theaters know the way towards us, where we usually are a sort of a glue between the different locations, different hospitals, even theaters. So from one hospital towards a theater, so that doctors don't have to travel as much as they did in the past. Sports, same thing. Well, basketball is a bit slow now here in the Netherlands, but per September, the competition will take place again. And we're one of the partners with FIBA to deliver all of the games based on SRT with intercom towards Azimuth in Bulgaria, I believe they're located, to sort of replace satellite technology in the first step as an uplink. So we're going to be primary and they're going to be secondary with satellite. So we're slowly moving that way. And well, we changed our slogan lately and we say that we're now into solution-based rentals.
I see. Yeah, I really like that, Hum. You guys have always got some really exciting stuff going on. It's always about pushing it to the next level, essentially. So I'm really excited to see what you guys come up with there. And then Wilfried, any exciting plans in the pipeline for you that you can talk to us about?
Yes, alongside with our customers, we have identified a need for extended monetization of investment in sport rights. I mean, sport rights are increasing, and of course, there is a need to get more out of your investment, and so that's why we have recently established a new business segment as SportMediaNet to support service providers in advertising and marketing of sports media. So that means this is a new business field, and we are more than happy that we have a very experienced team now in Munich, based in Munich, on start, and to support, let's say, the German and of course European broadcasters and service providers in the marketing of sports.
Yeah, fantastic stuff, Wilfried. I just think the sports industry is such an exciting place to be at the moment. I know maybe when we spoke to both of you guys, COVID was obviously still, we were kind of in the thick of it. and not a lot of people really knew what was happening with sports at that point. I think we're definitely coming out of the tunnel with it. I think there's definitely coming out with the light on the other side. So it's really great to see what you guys have got going on in terms of exciting plans for the future. So how can people get in touch with both of you if they want to inquire? So Wilfried, how can people get in touch with Sport Media Net?
Yes, they can contact me directly, Wilfried.Wuest@sportmedianet.de or info@sportmedianet.de. I guess you will provide, let's say, the data, and
Yeah, 100%. And Harm, how can people get in touch with YourSide if they want to inquire about anything?
Well, find us at the internet, www.yourside.nl or .tv, logical for a TV production company, or just find me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to connect with brothers in arms and see if we can bring some projects to a successful. Well, I wouldn't say ending, but bring them on the road successfully.
On a journey.
Get it going successfully.
So yeah, guys, thank you so much for obviously coming on and joining me today. Really do appreciate it for kind of educating me on that topic there.
You're welcome.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.